All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let's make sure we're all set. Is that showing up? Yeah. All right, great. Well, thank you all for being here, especially at 8:30 in the morning. So kudos for being in your seats. My request is anyone who shows up at 8:30 for a conference setting, especially not on the first day, they're the person I want to be a teammate with, and this is an NBA talk, so we're all on the same team today. I promise I will bring some cool videos and show some good material and at least moderate presenting skills. You guys give me at least a courtesy laugh for a bad joke now and again, and we'll get through this 8:30 presentation. So I'm Charlie Rohlf. I lead the stats team for the NBA, and the stats team is the team that is responsible for all the data in the back end, and we'll talk about what that is in a minute. But let's show the agenda here. We'll talk about our team, how we do the NBA, the WNBA, the G League, the BAL, all of the NBA stats, all of it runs on Azure. We'll go through a macro solution and problem that we face and how Azure helps us solve it. And then we'll dive in a little bit closer to a more micro problem, kind of narrow our focus on some cool new things we're doing. And throughout the presentation, we'll be showing cool basketball stats and cool things the NBA does to engage and educate our fans. All right, and I hope you'll bring some questions too. We'll have questions throughout, questions at the end. Those online, hopefully you'll bring some questions too. So let's talk about the stats team so you know where I'm coming from. This is our mission statement. If we are educating and engaging fans, we know we're doing something right. Oftentimes, especially for stats, it is a not clear ROI. It's not as if people are paying to see the box score. And the box score is all over our products. Everywhere you see stats, something's coming from our team, whether it's the rosters, the schedules, the new player tracking data, the historical records back to the beginning of the league. It's everywhere. So sometimes it's hard to measure, like, what impact does that have? Well, it's right in red. That's our goal. If we're educating and engaging fans, we know we're doing something right. Now, the scope of our team. We handle the entire back-end tech stack of stats for the NBA, and that's the WNBA, the G League, the BAL, as I mentioned. So everything from the point of ingestion, wherever that data is coming from, through to the delivery of that data of wherever that data needs to go. And sometimes that's often our digital products. It could be to our teams, our WNBA and NBA teams. It could be ad hoc reports emailed to our basketball operations department, and all of the above. And then we have everything in the middle, which is all the cool stuff, which is where we'll focus most of our attention today. So that's the processing, the archival, the storage, the history, the record books back to 1946, but also all the cool AI, ML stuff to create insights and exciting things out of the data we have, synthesize new data, make predictions that ultimately we deliver to educate and engage our fans. So we have a lot of stakeholders, as you can imagine, we alluded to. The stakeholders are varied. Some of them are very technical, our fans, our team. Some of them are not technical at all, but we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen for us. This is where all our stats go. You can see everywhere from our products, our teams, to our content departments, social media, to other media outlets, ESPN, and so forth. Our global partners like Microsoft, our great partnership with Microsoft. We're delivering data to all these places, and our infrastructure has to handle that. We have to scale with all these use cases. We have to try to look for synergy, look for ways where we can deliver the same thing in multiple places, and make sure our infrastructure is flexible enough to handle all these different use cases. So let's start with a video, give you a sense of kind of the scope of everything we're doing. And hopefully it'll get you going in the morning here a little bit.
We cannot be stalling. We pulling on hard. A one shot, one chance. I gotta go all in. You know what it is. I gotta get it. You know what it is. I'm gonna win it. You know what it is. 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 I gotta get it. You know what it is. Get down on business. You know what it is. You know what it is. Game time check. Game time we. Game time check. Game time we up. Gotta stay up. Way up. It's cut a dub on a rematch. First time won't relax. It's the beginning, we just got started. It's the beginning, we just got started. It's the beginning, we just got started.
I promise we picked the Just Getting Started song before I knew this was at 8:30 in the morning. But, you know, I hope that's not the highlight of the presentation, by the way. But you know, that gives you a sense, though, of all the things that we are doing, right? Think of our app, our website, all of our leagues, all the things we do. The stats team's involved with all of that. And Azure is our the backbone of the infrastructure and kind of the glue that holds all that together for us. Right? Without Azure, we couldn't power all those things. We couldn't have the flexible infrastructure necessary to do all the things in that cool 1-minute video you saw there. So let's take a look at that in a little more detail. And this is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek slide. Right? But that's, if anyone are basketball historians, that's Wilt's box score when he scored 100 points. We have to handle that. Right? We have data before there was Azure. We had data before there was Microsoft, for that matter. Right? We have pen and paper data. We had to load that into our database. We have to keep that historical record active. Right? And we're still gathering it by hand in many cases. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. That works very well. But we also have to handle our player tracking data on the right. And we'll talk more about that later. But that's 29 body parts, 60 times a second, millions of data points for every game. We have to handle both of those things and everything in between. And we have to handle it at different latencies. We have to do different things with it, all in the same infrastructure. We've got to join it all together so it's synergy with each other. And we have to do a lot of different use cases on the output side. Right? That's just the input, the data. This is the output now. We have to bring data to our website. How great is that picture, by the way? Isn't that perfect for our presentation? I get a lot of mileage out of that picture. But we have to make the best stats site we can. Right? This is how our fans interact with our product. And you can see here, just as I'll talk over it, this is our stats site. We have to allow users to come in, see the report. Some people just want the core report. Some people are power users. They want to click in and they want to click all the different filters and run a new report and get a new output. And you can see all the drop downs there. There are over 1 quadrillion combinations, and every one of those makes an API call against our warehouse, brings data back very quickly. That infrastructure has to exist. And we also need the infrastructure that can do this. We need to be able to generate these insights. We need to be able to do the AI and ML in the middle and get them out the door, and get them out the door really, really fast. So not only are we detecting all of these things, we're detecting these interesting insights in real time as they happen and delivering them to our products, right? But we're doing the AI and ML, and this is a little small, I understand, but in real time, as the game's going on, you can see the little thing pulse. We are catching every pass, every shot, every rebound, and we have to display that for our broadcasters, the little inset to the bottom left, the black and white screen. That's used by our broadcasters to help call the game. And it's so fast that as you watch the game in front of you, when the ball goes through the net, by the time you look down on your tablet in front of you, you see the stats updating. Right? Imagine the infrastructure that handles both of those things, handles that website, that historical record book. You can filter and slice and dice, and then also handle all these things coming through with so little latency that in the arena in front of the game, you can use it to help announce the game and show you what's happening right in real time. And again, Azure is the glue that holds all that together. So the highlights for us on the Azure side, we have to mention our hybrid setup. We love Azure in the cloud. We use all sorts of cloud products. I'll show you the list in a moment. But a lot of our work is still on-prem. It's our legacy systems, both in our back office, but we have 30 little Azure on-sites in our 30 NBA arenas. Right? We have to be able to connect those servers to our cloud, to our back office. All those things have to work in concert to get through a live game and get all the data ingested, processed, stored, and delivered. Right? DevOps has been a huge plus for us. Azure DevOps has been a game changer. It has allowed our team to really scale and work efficiently. We have a lot of different skill sets on our team. And the Azure DevOps has brought us all together to be efficient and to work well together. And as I said, it brings our cross-functions together. Data science, database experts, full stack engineers, we can all rally around Azure, use the portal, use DevOps, and all get along and be efficient and work together. Here's a quick list of everything we do on Azure. Actually, I shouldn't say everything, but many of the services we use, it's quite a varied tech stack. Happy to take questions on it towards the end, but right, we're using so many Azure products, and they're invaluable to us in our mission of educating and engaging fans and bringing these stats to our products, to our users, and all the different use cases that we showed earlier, whether it's our broadcasters, our media partners, our teams, for basketball analytics, research in our own social media department. They're all being run, all these jobs are being run on Azure for us. Right, and again, it brings us back to our mission statement. It enables us to deliver the fan-facing solutions. And really, we've invested heavily in this infrastructure. The infrastructure has allowed us to build a lot of the cool things we're going to show in the second half of this presentation. Right, and the investment is really starting to pay off for us, as you'll see, is how we use our player tracking data. here in a moment. But this infrastructure is in use every day. It was in use last night. It'll be in use again tonight with every game. And the uptime is incredible, right? Think of all the, we can't handle any downtime. If the game goes on, we have to be up and running. We have to have backups. We have to keep working. And Azure delivers that for us. Another video for us here.
We have our NBA content available to our fans on every platform out there in the marketplace.
We saw an opportunity to utilize data more effectively to improve our user experience.
Our broadcast engineers, operations teams, and developers rely on data to make informed decisions. Unifying this data to deliver advanced analytics is a foundation to our success.
Our teams are capturing, storing, and analyzing data throughout our entire ecosystem. And with that massive workload, we needed a foundation that is resilient and secure with the ability to process information in real time.
Azure delivers a seamless data experience throughout the organization and allows the NBA to scale up on demand. Integration of AI tools allows us to create new solutions to localize highlights, translate content into multiple languages, and create personalized experiences. It truly has enabled us to extract and transform the copious amounts of data that we have. It also allows us to ensure we have uniformity across all of this data to keep a consistent and optimal fan experience. The impact on our global audience has been absolutely tremendous. We can now deliver to our fans in 16 languages in more than 200 countries, allowing them to deepen their connection to the NBA.
With Microsoft, we've intertwined AI services into every facet of our infrastructure. So we just have to worry about delivering what we do best, and that's basketball.
Wonderful. So with that, let's bring out Jasmine Greenaway to join us on stage here. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we do at a macro scale. Thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Charlie. So I have a couple questions for you. So one thing that stood out to your presentation so far is the amount of data you're working with. You mentioned millions of data points, a lot of moving parts. You're thinking about, as you mentioned, latency, all these different challenges with data. And so it takes a large team, a large set of, that's delivering to a large set of stakeholders. And so, one question I have is, you talked a little bit more about the services you used, specifically around Azure, and you called out Azure DevOps. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how that helped your team be more productive?
Sure, thanks, Jasmine. So I'm being honest when I say that we didn't have DevOps before Azure. So Azure DevOps was our first, as a team, use of Azure DevOps at all, and it has really unlocked the potential of our team. So as you can imagine, our team is, we have database experts, we have data science experts, we have API experts. Shout out to Keith on our video there. He's our DevOps expert, and we work very closely with Keith's team. And it's really allowed us to kind of be the basketball nerds and focus on the basketball product and the stats and the data and do what we do best. And Keith manages our infrastructure, does an incredible job, and really that working relationship through Azure DevOps has been an incredible boon to our efficiency and our ability to get out more stats to engage and educate our fans.
That's wonderful. I love to hear that Azure DevOps helps you kind of focus on what's important, which is delivering that data to end users and kind of dealing with all the complications of that and dealing with that in real time. I have another question for you. One thing I was reading about, just your biography, you mentioned that, you've been working in this field for a long time. So if any of you has looked at the session, you'll know that Charlie actually worked on as a computer vision engineer. And he was working on the first optical tracking systems for NBA arenas. And so as a leader of stats technology for the NBA now, you've seen a lot. And so, I want to know, what's evolved since then and what excites you now?
I know it's going to be a memory test. But, I can barely remember when I coded. My coding fingers are rusted shut these days. But, I'm excited about how much and how many different people use it. I know it's a challenge for us in terms of the infrastructure and handling all those use cases, but it thrills me how many different people and how many different use cases are served by our data. And that really gets me excited, and it shows how much room there is still to grow. There's so many more things we can do, and I'm excited to show you some of the things that are upcoming here of what we're using this player tracking data for to really not only change the way the game is coached and taught and our teams use it, but also how our fans engage and what they learn about their favorite players and what makes them such amazing athletes.
Wonderful. I'm excited to see more. Thanks, Charlie.
All right, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to kind of narrow our focus. We talked about the whole scope, right? Everything from the point of ingestion through the data science, AI, ML processing in the middle, and through to delivery. Now we're going to zoom in specifically, and we mentioned on that player tracking data. So as I said, we get 29 body parts for every player 60 times a second in 3 dimensions. And you can see that we affectionately call the video on the bottom our dancing skeletons. And we love it. But you can really see the action, right? Line it up with the video. You can identify the players by their mannerisms and how they move and their shooting form. And it's really just an incredible data set. And we're so excited for the things we can do with this and excited to show you a little bit about it right here. Again, those are the 29 parts, right? I joke with my kids, it's the head, shoulders, knees, and toes of basketball data. But we get the hand, wrist, elbow, shoulders. It gives us the orientation, allows us to understand the pose of the player. And you can see a sample of the JSON there on the right of what we actually get, an XYZ location of that joint center, right? 60 times a second. And that's, in a nutshell, what we have to do. On the left, you see the computer vision system deployed by our vendor Hawkeye. They put the cameras in the arenas, and they run AI and ML to do computer vision to track the players, and they give us this tracking data set, this incredible tracking data set. We have to receive that, we have to process it, we have to run AI and ML algorithms against it. We then have to aggregate everything back up, because oftentimes it's great to find a pass or find a drive, but that's not as great as knowing how many drives there were in the whole game, right? Or how many drives there are in the season. So we've got to keep aggregating it in real time, and then we have to deliver it. And then lurking in the top right are all our stakeholders, right? We have all these different use cases, right? I've oversimplified this slide, but this infrastructure for live delivery in under 1 second has to work for our teams, it has to work for our broadcast partners, it has to work for our digital products. All those same stakeholders that we saw earlier, right? They're still lurking here and they want to use this tracking data, and they're as excited as we are to see what they can do with it. Right? And it gives you a sense of all the different places. The WNBA has the same set of tracking data. The G League has the same set of tracking data. Our own digital products have uses here. Sports science, right? Helping the athletes, stay healthy, and measuring their performance out there. Our arenas want to use this data. We'll see some pictures of that later on. Right? The same Azure infrastructure has to allow all these different users to connect, receive what they need, get it in real time, and do what they have to do. And here's sort of the eye test of our infrastructure. I'll spend a little time on it. Let's see. I don't think is my mouse? No, I can't use my mouse. That's okay. So on the left, in the box with the court, that's the computer vision system. Right? That's run by Hawkeye as our vendor. They install up to 20 cameras in every arena, and they're doing the computer vision to detect and generate that tracking data set. And then we start immediately to the right of that box. So there's the 2 boxes stacked on top of each other. You see Shepherd across the top. That's our system right there. And we're spinning up instances to listen to each Hawkeye stream through RabbitMQ, and we're using Azure's Kubernetes service to spin up those instances. We listen to that data, and then we have our own, we call it a data science playground, where we deploy Flink. We use Flink to do a lot of the real-time the real-time data processing. And one of the things we love about Azure Kubernetes is the ability to have a dedicated node pool. So many of our use cases, all they want to do is take the tracking data just as we get it and use it for something else. So imagine 3D recreations or something like the dancing skeleton, but they put an animation on top of it. Right? They don't need any of the cool insights of how high they jumped or how fast they're running. They just want the tracking data. So we have to receive it and deliver it as fast as we can. We don't want to interrupt that workflow. We don't want all the other heavier data science things that we do that are awesome, but we don't want that to interrupt the core workflow. We're able to use Azure Kubernetes to give a dedicated node pool to our heavier Flink data science workloads and ensure that even if something went wrong there, the Flink or the node pool has to reset, it won't interrupt the delivery of the live pipeline of the tracking data that might be powering a 3D recreation of the game for a broadcaster or for a media partner. Right, so that's where it scales out. You can see the three infrastructures there, and then it heads to our Azure storage. Some of our users want to listen to that live stream, and we have an API system where you can connect, listen to the live stream, get the data within milliseconds of us receiving it. But then we also send it to a storage container, right? Azure storage container. Some users aren't that ready for that, or that's not what their use case is. They want to look at data over the course of the whole season. They want to get a batch job of all the data at the end of the game. They can go to our Azure storage container. They don't need to build the infrastructure to stream it. They can get the same data that way, run a batch job at the end of the game, get what they need and do the analysis, often as a team, to help understand the data and work with the data. And then again, finally on the right, we have a whole infrastructure for the API layer. That's the purple box. And we use that to deliver our core data, our box scores, our play-by-play, our historical records. And it's the same data, same API system allows our users to log in, provision themselves a key, connect to a tracking stream, or they can connect and get the box score, or get the play-by-play of the game, all in the same developer portal of APIs right next to each other. All right, time to geek out on NBA stats now. Some of the cool things we're doing. So I have to do at least a little bit of NBA talk. So thanks to Azure, we are breaking new ground and finding all these new stats that we've never been able to find before. So that was an example on the bottom left there, average time double teamed. Imagine how hard it would be to chart every single double team in a game. We can now do it automatically, thanks to Azure and thanks to our data science. We measure, you see the little red lines, we measure the connection between every player, every offensive and defensive player. We've taught basketball to the computer. We understand who's guarding whom every moment of the game because we've taught the principles of man-to-man defense. Right? Are they in a passing lane? Are they between their man and the basket? How much pressure are they exerting? We can tell you who's guarding whom every moment of the game. And it shows a never-before-seen side of the game. Right? Think of everyone trying to chart things by hand. If you had to chart every matchup and how long they existed, how long did a player guard another player, we can do that automatically now. And what we love about this and how it helps educate and engage fans, back to that theme, it helps educate and engage fans is it's something they understand. It's not some really hard to understand concept of player efficiency. It's the box score. It's what everybody knows. It's what was in the newspaper. Right? It's the points, the rebounds, the assists, but now it's flipped around and it's shown for the defensive side. Who was the defender for those points, rebounds, assists? Who was, how did the offensive player perform? How many shots did they allow? All that is now available because of the live, real-time Flink on Azure infrastructure that has allowed us to produce this data and detect the data live in real time and put this on our products. You can see in the top right, we have our defensive box score that updates live for our broadcasters so they can speak on it, and it's approachable for fans. It's an incredible data science and infrastructure achievement, but it's also approachable, and it helps educate and engage our fans. And then finally, we have to unveil our dunk score. So this is the one I'm most excited about. We are taking on the left the jump height, the ball height, how far from the hoop were they when they jumped, and we're turning it into a dunk score, allowing us to rank and rate each dunk as they happen in real time, again, within a second of the dunk happening. So picture the dunk competition, the all-star dunk competition. We wanted to do that for every real-time NBA dunk in a real game, and then see how fans engage with it and start the conversation, start the debate about which dunk was the best dunk. So let's watch a video here of how this works a little bit. There we go.
Only had one shot attempt in that first half. Another turnover for Utah. Edwards gets it. From the rafters. And Taylor's hurt his hand on that too. That was ridiculous.
Pretty cool? Yeah. All right. So the dunk score takes 4 sub-scores, as we call it: jump, power, style, and defensive contest. But really what's happening is there's 25 or more, a little bit over 25, features or things about the dunk that we calculate. And you saw a few of them there. How high was the ball? How far from the hoop did he jump? the speed through the rim. We look at the orientation of the player's body. We look at the defender, how high the defender reached. We calculate these 25, 26, 27 features about every dunk. We bucket them into these 4 subscores to make it, again, more approachable and understandable for our fans. And they could see, well, how high did the jump score? What was the amount of style? And break it down, and then we put it all together, and we come up with that dunk score. It's uncapped, so it's 124.4, that 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗻𝗻𝗀𝗳 dunk you saw in the video. That's the highest we've seen since we had the tracking data available. But we didn't want to put a limit on it. Who knows what athletic feat these incredible athletes may do next. So we'll see how high it can go. But again, back to the theme of the presentation. So many use cases. On the right, you see our social media. This has been a huge win for our social media department. Right? The amount of likes and engagements that we're getting on Instagram compared to like an average stats post has really, really increased dramatically, and people love this. And even if people don't like it, they're engaging with it, right? They debate why it's right or wrong or which dunk should have been better. And that creates engagement, and we love that. It's great. It brings attention to these great players. It also helps us highlight some other players who aren't necessarily star players, right? There have been a lot of dunks that maybe wouldn't have gone viral before, but now because we were able to identify all the incredible athletic features of it, we can call that dunk out and really promote why that dunk was incredible, even if it wasn't necessarily a star player doing it. And then the top left, you see it's broadcasts has loved this. They've been able to, again, highlight the incredible athletic feat, show how high the ball is, show it in real time. And it's even been used in our arenas. We've rolled it out only to start the season. It's already being used in the arenas. That's the Intuit Dome for the Clippers. We're at a Microsoft conference. We had to get Mr. Ballmer involved. But they've been great. They've been an excellent partner. They're already putting the graphics on the scoreboard shortly after the dunk happens to highlight the great Clippers dunks of the season. A couple future projects before we go, and we'll open this up to questions here in a few moments. We're going to take that tracking data and turn it into what we feel will be the industry's best shot quality model. So there have been lots of shot quality models over the years, and not every shot is created equally, right? Some players take harder and make harder shots. We want to be able to model that. Now that we have this incredible 29-point pose data, we want to assess not only the player, were they fading away, were they leaning to their right or to their left, how close was the defender when he contested the shot. We want to be able to measure all those things and spit out a shot quality model and really help fans understand which shots are difficult, which shooters are, two players who both shoot 40% on three-pointers are not necessarily equal. One player, like Steph Curry, is taking much harder shots. We want to be able to illustrate that and show our fans and help teach them about what makes Steph Curry so special or any great shooter so special. And then even longer term, we call it whiteboard mode. Think back to your high school sporting event. Every coach had a whiteboard, and they were drawing up the play, right? And you go, run it. We want every fan to be able to do that. We want every fan on our products to be able to draw up on the whiteboard on a play, and then search against our database, find all the times a team ran that play, right? Get the highlights right there. Maybe you watched a great highlight of an alley-oop give and go for a dunk. Well, say, click one button and say, how many times did my team run that play? What's our points per possession, our efficiency, our frequencies when they run that, right? Azure's going to be able to unlock all that for us, and we're working on it right now with our data scientists, and we're excited about that future. I thought I would show one more here. We're going to, since we are in the demo and a breakout, we're going to switch one more here. I wanted to show our new dunk score. This rolled out, oops, oh, I'm on the wrong window. There we go. We rolled this out yesterday, so you're the first ones to see this. So this is our dunk score. You can see all the dunks over the course of the season. You can sort by score. John Collins has the highest dunk so far, 113.4. But you can sort by jump, the jump score, 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗻𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 All right, we can look for tip-ins, alley-oops, player vertical. Ooh, shade and sharp, 40-inch vertical. And then any of these you can watch. Let's go Jalen Green, 40.2. Click the link, watch the video.
If you take care of it, you'll have a chance.
Rockets trying to play some defense. poke away, and Jalen Green gets inside for a jam.
Right, so just think of all the steps that go into making this possible, right? We need that data warehouse. We need the API layer. We need all the data science that not only calculates the player vertical, but it detects the dunk in the first place, the modeling layer that gives it a score, the pop-up ad. Right, the ability to filter in the front end. All that comes together. All of that is powered by Azure across all of our systems. It brings all of our different teams and different skills together through Azure DevOps. And I thought we would end in a fitting way. So if you remember, about a week ago, Steph Curry had a great shot here. We'll play the video. You can see every video of every play-by-play event on our website.
Doncic will defend Curry. A screen by Green, the switch to Lively. 3, Curry.
All right, now, this is why I love the data. But watch till the end. Like, you can tell it's Steph Curry, right? Yeah. But you're really going to be able to tell in a moment. Keep watching, Steph. You can see the night-night pose at the end. What better way to close out the presentation than the night-night, right? So let's bring Jasmine back out to kick off our questions. Oh, thank you, Jasmine. All right, we'll switch sides.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Thanks for having me back out. So, when we were talking about your session, there's one thing that you were mentioning about just AI, and you were talking about how just data science is AI, and in your architecture diagram, you kind of really illustrate that. So can you talk a little bit more about the algorithms, models that you're using?
Sure, absolutely. So, we showed the one slide where there were all those insights, and we love generative AI as much as anyone. We're so excited about the future of that. But we've been doing AI for over a decade, right? We're teaching the machine to do something a human would do in so many aspects. Really, AI touches pretty much every part of our stack, right? From the computer vision at the beginning, teaching it about basketball in the middle, helping it detect post-ups, drives, ball screens, who's guarding whom, through to adding generative AI to add language and make it real for the fan on the front end. All those are AI, and we're big advocates for, pick the AI and the ML tool that is right for the job, right? There's so much you can do with generative AI, but there's nothing wrong with the AI we've been doing for 10 years either. And many of those are the right for us, and we're excited about all those things that we can do. We're looking more at deep learning and how we can use this tracking data to more effectively classify all the actions. You can imagine for that search tool, how we will cluster the data to help make that efficient so that when you provide a sample play and say, find all the plays like that, we can dive in and get a result across all the tracking data for seasons and seasons and seasons, get a result in a matter of a second or two so that the fan doesn't get bored waiting for a return to result. That's going to take incredible clustering algorithms to make sure we embed the similarity accurately for what a fan would expect for a similar play. All those techniques are used. It's generative AI is great, but it's not just generative AI, and it needs to be explainable, it needs to be understandable. Our teams demand that the AI be understandable. They want to know what constitutes a drive or what constitutes a post-up. In many cases, it's more important to be transparent than to be accurate. Who's to say what a post-up is, Jez, right? There's a lot of different definitions, but we want to be consistent and accurate and transparent for many of these use cases.
Of course. Yeah, use a tool that works for you. So if any of you have any additional questions, we invite you to go ahead and come up to the microphone here. Oh, we have some folks who are already volunteering.
Thank you.
Yes.
I guess I am some folks. Hello. I have a lot of questions, but I guess I'll start, let's see. My first question would be, I know there's been a lot about load management in the NBA and the data that supports load management, and I've seen some people say that there's never really been any data to suggest that load management actually works as a technique. So have you guys in your office ever utilized like the tracking data that you have and the advanced data that you all have to kind of use that to judge the effectiveness of load management in the NBA?
I'm certainly not I'm not a sports scientist or a trainer or a medical professional in any way, so I don't know much about that world, but I know that that data is consumed by the medical professionals of the team, and we're excited that the data can help them keep the players healthy and playing at their best for as long as they want. So.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Because like I had some more, but I don't want to be the only person asking it.
There you go. You encourage people. There you go.
Yeah. And we got one more. Yes.
So at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned ROI and how it's hard for you to quantify because obviously a lot of it is consumption by,
Sure.
As a sports nerd, I get the ROI, but from a product perspective, can you expand a little more on how you guys quantify and measure ROI and how that's changed maybe with the legalization of sports betting, for example?
Sure. So certainly our gaming partners consume our data, and we're excited about that. And it's even more reason why it's important for us to be transparent and make sure everything is out in the light. But the data is on all our products, and I'm not the product manager that necessarily manages any given part of the site, but certainly they're looking at engagement and how often our page is clicked on. And for social media, we certainly look at how many likes, how many engagements, how many comments, and that all of those are trending up, like thanks to dunk score. And generally they all trend up when we make something that is understandable, right? Like when we get very excited for things like the defensive box score because it's understandable, or the dunk score. It's not a crazy player efficiency rating, and there's a place for those, don't get me wrong. The teams use those, there's nothing wrong with those, but those are not as approachable to fans. And we know that when we make the metric something that's understandable, that our fans engage with it, they like it, and that drives better ROI, at least on our posts and in the places where we can more directly measure it.
Cool, thank you. And I have a follow-up question. Go ahead. So you talked about the external API that you expose for people to consume, external data scientists and stuff like that. But you also mentioned that you're aggregating a lot of data and maybe abstracting a lot of the data.
Sure.
So how do you decide what data you're exposing? Like, I imagine you're not exposing all of the raw data from all of your camera tracking metrics. So how do you decide what data to expose and what data to keep as proprietary?
So we do expose it to select partners and to our media partners and to vendors of our teams, right? If our team hires a third-party data scientist that they want to crunch the numbers and help give them some competitive advantage, we have to be able to make all the data available. So everything from the raw player tracking data, 29 body parts, 60 times a second, we have to be able to surface. But certainly our API layer, we are able to provision and permission that accordingly, but the infrastructure has to support all of them. And the decision is obviously based on a lot of use cases, factors, partnerships, and what goes out to different aspects of our business. But what's exciting about Azure and about the infrastructure is that we can support and be flexible and handle all those different cases. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome talk.
Thank you.
First, thanks. I thought that was a great presentation, just a lot of interesting information. So the question that I have is that you have next level access to all the data and analysis that the NBA has to offer. So with that, who is the greatest of all time? And mind you, we are in Chicago.
Well, I cannot officially say, but I grew up in the 90s here in Chicago. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tori Tolton from Point B.
Thank you.
How do you define your data products for your consumers, and how do you teach those consumers to use those products?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by defined?
So you guys have created a whole bunch of insights that are useful in a variety of contexts for a variety of people. How do you define what those products do and deliver? And how do you help those people understand how to use those?
It's a great question. Some of it is a very traditional product management question. And while I'm not a product manager, we have a great set of product managers that are obviously going out, talking to our customers, coming up with their problems, and looking for ways to solve them. But for us, a lot of times, we're thinking about all the stakeholders we have as the stats team and looking for ways to find synergy across them. And actually, the Insights is a great example. So we showed that slide of the insights that were powered by Copilot, and then we have a lower third graphic, and we have our iOS live activity, if you remember that slide. We generate hundreds and hundreds of those types of alerts for every game. We call it our fire hose. That fire hose of alerts is a mountain of business logic that looks for every meaningful thing in every game. And that could be a round number, it could be a milestone, it could be a number you changed places with someone on the team or the all-time leaderboard. And we're sending out those alerts as they happen in real time as a fire hose, hundreds of them every game. And our content team uses them. They want to see everything. They don't want to miss anything. There's plenty of use cases that want those. But then we realized, oh, there's a synergy opportunity here. That's too much for our products. But it's, that'd be overwhelming for a fan or for a product. We'd be constantly cycling through them. We applied another layer of data science. We curated them, and we scored them based on how cool is this, how rare is this, right? Who's involved, so that we can make sure the best alerts are focused on, and that allowed us to connect with the products and get value from there. And again, that's that same system that we have looked for a way, okay, we found another, how could we take something existing and solve a different problem with it with only like a little bit of extra tweak at the end. So it's kind of a classic product management problem for us too, just as it is for how you design the standings page and do all what you'd think of as classic product management things.
That's great. Just one follow-up.
Sure.
Do you guys measure the activity and engagement with your data itself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So
How do you do that?
There's, we do it a couple places. We, of course, the app is embedded with analytics and page opens and engagement and time watched and all those classic things that I'm not necessarily an expert in. But then, of course, we measure which APIs are getting used, what queries are being run against our database. Think of that data, the stat site where you can filter everything. We're looking at what filters are being used and making sure that those are easily accessible and the product is tailored to those use cases.
Hello. So you'll forgive me for mentioning baseball, but I have more experience knowing about baseball advanced stats. So one thing that had a big impact was spin rate. Is there a stat that, like an advanced basketball stat, that has a large impact on how recruiting works as something that teams look for that they couldn't do previously?
What I love about the landscape for basketball, and certainly I don't want to speak for the 30 teams, but in my view from working with all 30 from a distance is that there are so many metrics that are valuable, right? Think of all the things you can calculate once you have that pose data, right? But there's so many, but each team, there's some overlap, but then there's some things that are unique to each team that they want to focus on and their coaches think are important and that they want to reinforce. And it allows for whatever that coach and whatever the strategy and whatever the scouting report says, it allows for those teams to find something in the data that helps reinforce that and helps show and illustrate to the players, to the coaches, to the front office that principle and what they're looking for, and that there isn't just one size fits all. There's so much data, and basketball is such a fluid sport with so many different ways to play, and this data is able to match that and allow them to really dig in and focus on the things they want, because you can't give fans, you can't give players, you can't give anyone hundreds and hundreds of stats. You have to focus, but the data is so powerful, you can really dig into whatever angle you want.
Thank you.
We'll give these last two questions here, 30 seconds each. We're just about at time.
With the legalization of gambling, what has been the impact on your group and what you do or potentially don't do?
I'm not in the gaming department, so I'm probably not the right person to answer that question. But whether it was before or after legalization of gambling, we're always very concerned with transparency. We want our stats to be right. There's many layers of audits, and we're always concerned with making sure the record book's right. Like, they're near and dear to our hearts. Like, that's the official record of the game. We take that very seriously. All the fun things we showed, the dunk score, it all falls down if we don't get the transparency right, if we don't get the consistency right, if we don't have the foundational layers there, and that's been important to us from well before gaming was legalized. That will always be near and dear to our hearts.
First of all, excellent presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Second, my question is, with all the data you're collecting, do you get incorrect data points, and what do you do to handle those? Like, for example, maybe somebody's elbow comes back at an impossible angle. What
Sure.
happens? Do you toss that, or?
Excellent follow-up to the last question. That was perfect. We have, from the core box score stats, we have many layers of auditing, and our basketball operations department gets involved, and we are always making sure that everything is consistent and in line with the rule book. with the tracking data, of course, there's no perfect data set, right? There's nothing that's ever going to be 100% accurate, right? But we strive to get it as close as we can. We work with Hawkeye as our vendor. They've been a great partner with us. And they go back in, and when the computer vision algorithms make a mistake, they're able to go in and correct it and mark the player's pose where it needs to be and make that correction and re-upload. And like another thing with that infrastructure has to handle is it has to be able to take that reprocessing, update the data, and deliver the new set of data without anybody getting involved, right, from our side. So.
Thank you. All right. I think we're at time, but just one last final question. Charlie, what advice would you give other data leaders who are looking to adopt similar AI and Azure-based technologies?
Be very flexible, right? You never know what's around the corner. There's so many stakeholders, so many things that you might want to do. The data in every industry is so powerful, and you never know what the next thing will be that's important, so we stay flexible. We love Azure too, because there's so many it works so well with so many of our partners. We've had SQL Server forever, but also Databricks and other things run really well on Azure, and it's really the glue that holds it all together and allows us to be flexible. And then the final piece of advice is we're hiring. So if we're looking for great data scientists, great full stack engineers, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn and tell me you watched the presentation, and we're looking for some great people. So,
thank you.
Shameless plug to end it, so thank you. Thank you.